Reflections with theologian Father James Bacik, campus minister and assistant professor of philosophy at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio.
I think it is a good feeling to go to bed at night and to be able to go over one's day and say, hey, I was immersed in the moment. You know, I seized the opportunities that were given to me. I made the most of the various situations, or at least tried to do that. I don't suppose at night we'll ever go to bed and say we did that perfectly, because that would be more like an ideal. But as we move towards the ideal and do a fairly good job of it, I think there is a sort of satisfaction in life with that.
Joining Father Bacik in today's Reflections is Tom Welly, the general manager of a local advertising firm. Today, Father Bacik and Tom Welly discuss half-heartedness. Here's Father Bacik.
Tom, I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate you being willing to come and speak with me on this program, and that very busyness sort of sets in mind the topic. I'd like to talk about time a bit, something that is a very familiar and yet elusive notion for us.
Exactly. If this program allows us the 30 minutes that it's planned for, we ought to be able to at least cover the first phase of the topic.
That's right, time. We'll have to do it all in 25 minutes or so, I think it is.
Right.
Now, I was thinking about one of the problems of time, I think, is that we end up living half-heartedly in time, that we don't often put ourselves completely into the present moment, that we're not totally immersed in what we are doing. Many people find themselves carrying on many of their functions in life sort of in a half-hearted way. And I believe that one of the reasons for this is that people sense that they don't have enough time. It very often sets up a sort of frenzied kind of activity in life. People are saying to themselves, I got so much to do. There's so many demands on my time. I have my work to do. My family's makes demands on me. I need time for myself. When do I deal with my own personal growth? And so that people end up sort of feeling frenzied and frazzled about time. And what happens when we're feeling like that is that we can't really immerse ourselves in anything. Or perhaps it turns out that we do get really immersed and wholehearted about a particular activity, but that drains all of our energy and we can't do anything elsewhere. So somebody's at work maybe really banging away at the job and caring about it and can only carry that job home. And when they get home, the quality of the time with the family really suffers as a result. They're only half-hearted in their presence to their family. So I think that we could start to characterize a problem under that heading of half-heartedness and say that sometimes the demands and the fact that we don't have enough time really help to create it.
In running American business today, particularly in the professional fields where your output is judged on time, your remuneration is based on time, and it not only is a practical problem within the business community, but it, as you pointed out, it goes right back to one's personal life.
To the family and
Yes.
to one's own personal growth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You really hear people say that a lot of times, don't they? That they don't have enough time to get things done. I guess most of the people that we associate with feel the problem in that way. That there's they can't get all the things done that they really need to get done. And part of that is a problem, I think, of setting priorities. I mean, some people spend all kind of time doing things that are rather inconsequential,
Right.
that don't amount to much, and then they end up not having enough time to do the really essential things in life.
Well, prioritizing the elements that should be done and in the order they should be done in is very much key to this, because I think all of us, anyone who has a busy schedule, knows that they can't possibly cover all of the things they want to do within the prescribed period of time. They have to pick the important things.
And I guess so one of the problems is that people often don't even know what their priorities are. They're not aware of what things ought to be done first. And so people would end up spending a lot of time on what we would call the low priority items, and that takes up one's energy and one's time, all of one's resources, and then there isn't much left to do those very important things.
Exactly. I don't think that that without time control, I don't think it's possible to be, if you will, an efficient worker and an efficient person. Neither one.
You find this in your own place of work, Tom?
Yes.
That,
in our place, it's probably more prevalent than in many because, first of all, we are all of our structure of our billing of our work is all based on time. We are selling time, much as a professional would do when an individual doesn't perhaps like to think of it this way, but when he goes to the doctor or the dentist or his lawyer, he's definitely buying so much time. And that's how the professional establishes his monetary relationship with his client or his patient. The same thing is true in our business, which happens to be advertising and promotion, and we bill our clients on the basis of what is accomplished and how long it took to do it. If you want to go a little deeper into it, even the remuneration to the individual is based on that, because if we try to base everything on a value received basis, so that there's X number of dollars available for a particular project, and if it can be done in 20 hours or can be done in 10 hours, then the remuneration is based in the same way. Mm-hmm. It's all important to us from a business standpoint.
We do say time is money. That's one of the sayings in the culture, isn't it?
Right.
And I guess that does say something true about what's going on in the business world, at least, and the professional world.
You don't like to be that crass, but that's absolutely the truth.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking, too, that one of the problems of this half-hearted thing is that we really end up not enjoying things so much. It seems that what happens is that one ends up going through the motions, that there are certain tasks that have to be done, and one begins to lose excitement about them. They become routine, or even boredom can set in. And that certainly is a problem with time. When things begin to lack meaning is when it's hard to get ourselves going then. One of the reasons it's hard to get up in the morning, I suppose, is that for some people at least, that they don't sense that there's much to be done, or that there's anything that's really of vital importance, or there's nothing that can excite them. I guess very often life feels like the rat race, just going round and round, and with these constant demands, and therefore there could be a certain lack of meaning, I think, that could be involved. One would like to think that part of the thing is to get some more enjoyment into life, so that it's punctuated by times when our spirit soars a bit, or when things go better with us.
Don't you think that it's an interesting phenomenon that there's always enough time to do the things that are pleasurable and exciting and fun and that sort of thing, where the time problem really presents itself is when we're dealing with work, we're dealing with drudgery, we're dealing with things that really are unappealing, perhaps. Mm-hmm.
I would guess that one of the cultural problems, therefore, is that so many people don't enjoy their work. I mean, there's studies that show that people are dissatisfied with their jobs, or they don't find much personal satisfaction in them. I'm not sure it's always true that people can really get into their leisure time. I think that a lot of people end up having trouble even doing that. Some people are half-hearted about their recreation and leisure time, mostly because they're upset that over something that happened before, anxious about something that's coming in the future, and therefore they cannot really immerse themselves in even the good times or the leisure times. But I suppose we're at our best, the way you described it, when it is something that is able to grab us, and we sort of get lifted out of ourselves. We forget ourselves. I think a lot of the problem of time is that we are self-conscious, that we're sort of at a second level of reflection. We sort of realize what's going on, and in a way we can't let go or really get involved in what we're doing. I often talk about that in the heading that we are playing a role or going through the motions. We could think of the father of the family who just comes home and plays the role with his children. I mean, it's something he knows he's supposed to do. It's a duty or obligation, so he spends a little bit of time with them. But the time is half-hearted again. It has no quality to it. He's not really present. That would be an example of playing the role. Or we could think of ministers or priests playing the role, failing to really like their job or feel that it's meaningful or really put themselves in it entirely.
One of my earliest feelings of I guess, inadequacy almost, was the time I remember when I was in grade school, and there was a student in the school who was the so-called big deal. You know, he was the important athlete, the important scholar, and I noticed that every time I talked to him, he always looked away, he always looked off into the distance, he was nodding to someone else. He obviously did not consider me important, and it came through to me as a major message. And I think because of that, I've always been very attuned to the very type of thing that you're talking about.
That's a perfect example of this half-heartedness that we're talking about, isn't it? You're too busy to give time to a particular person. I think that we can often sense that in conversations, can't we? We're carrying on a conversation with someone and they are really absent. They're physically present, but psychically they're nowhere near us. They're not paying attention to what we have to say. There's no real empathy going on. And it really often makes people mad, I think.
Oh,
I think busy people have this problem. I think of the problem I have in standing in the back of church as people are coming out, and I'm trying to be attentive to faces and to people and to say hello to people. And there's some people who are coming out who I've been counseling or who I'm very concerned about, and I'm trying to at least a few seconds to look at their face, see how they're doing, say hello to them, and let them know that I'm still thinking about them. But boy, it is really difficult because right in that 5-minute period while everyone's filing out, there's so many demands and calls. And I suppose that sort of epitomizes for me the problem that we all have in our human relationships of being half-hearted, not having the psychic energy or the ability to be present to everything that's going on. But I think it is disturbing, like in more leisurely situations at a cocktail party or in a casual gathering, to be talking to someone and to know that they really are not listening. They're half-hearted about the conversation, and you get the impression, well, they're too busy to talk to me.
You know, I've noticed over the years that in contacts that I've had with, you might call them celebrities, people who, because of my business, I have a certain amount of contact with people like that. I'm fascinated by the fact that in every instance, with the exception of one that I can recall, the people were good listeners. You know, the big deals, so to speak, were attentive to what I had to say, as opposed to lots of other people, more like myself, who I come in contact with, who can't be bothered with a conversation. I think it's a if nothing else, it's a sign of maturity, if not greatness.
Yes. I think that very often that's been one of my observations about the great people that I have seen, is that they seem to have a great capacity to get immersed in whatever it is that is at hand and to shift gears quickly. Yes. I was thinking that's one of the problems involved in this half-hearted business again, that we are not able to shift gears. Our mind is on one thing, like at work, and then when the person comes home, it's a whole different environment, a whole different set of circumstances, and it's hard to get immersed in that new situation. And it seems to me the people who have it together or are more integrated or mature seem to have that ability to shift gears. It seems to me it's one of the skills we're probably going to have to learn more when we live busy lives.
Absolutely. I think that you cannot go from, let's say, the work environment or the play environment even, to the family environment. The husband or wife who comes home, maybe both are gone, they come home, they sit down to talk about their relationship, their family, things that are important to them as a combination or as a group with the family, to be able to move into that quickly and get away from the things that are individual to you, be it your personal life or your business life, and be able to make that transition is a great skill.
It is a skill, and it's a skill that other people appreciate, that you relate to then, and one doesn't come off as this half-hearted person. Well, Tom, I guess we've seen, talking about time now, and half-heartedness that results from being too busy in one way or another, too tied up at work and not enough ability to relate to family, or too tied up with one's own preoccupations in order to relate well to other people. So half-heartedness seems to be a sort of a constant temptation of all of us, I would think. We all have our times when we sense that there's no meaning in what we're doing, or it's dull or boring, or we're getting tired of it, in which we just as soon not be there. So half-heartedness is not only a temptation, but probably a problem that we could all sense in one way or another. Now, I'd like to put forward as the opposite kind of ideal the wholehearted person, and to think that of the way we ought to try to live life is with a lot of gusto, to try to immerse ourselves in what is going on. If we think of the really mature, good people we know, they are present to the situation. When they're talking to someone, they try to listen well and respond, as you pointed out before about the great people and important people that you've had contact with. To be a wholehearted person means that we can find meaning in all of the various kinds of activities of our lives. I sense that the wholehearted person enjoys life. There would be a certain excitement, and their spirits would soar rather easily. They would be the kind of person that had come to terms with their past and the good and the bad that has happened to them before, and has sort of integrated that into their current personality. It is a kind of person who looks forward to the future in a healthy way. They have a sense of proper anticipation about life. So I could sort of envision this wholehearted person that overcomes the temptation to half-heartedness and lives life with a lot of zest and energy. It really, I think, is an appealing ideal. I know I presented that to various groups, and it's been interesting to see that there is a resonance with that, and people say, it's a neat way to live, or I'd like to try to move in that direction myself.
I think all of us when we're looking at ourselves and we're thinking about things that are very important to us, and we're looking at our physical condition, our mental condition, our spiritual condition, that if we can feel that we are at least giving it our all, we are doing the best that we can, it's a very good notion. It's a very practical thing, I think. It's a good practical way of explaining kind of a subliminal thought that's a little difficult to get a handle on. I like the idea of living with gusto.
Yes, and as you said, knowing that we made our best effort. It seems to me that's a big part of it, is zeroing in on the effort that we make in life. I think it is a good feeling to go to bed at night and to be able to go over one's day and say, hey, I was immersed in the moment. I seized the opportunities that were given to me. I made the most of the various situations, or at least tried to do that. I don't suppose at night we'll ever go to bed and say we did that perfectly, because that would be more like an ideal. But as we move towards the ideal and do a fairly good job of it, I think there is a sort of satisfaction in life with that. The commercials do have that idea. You only go around once in life. And I think there's something true. I think that ought to be said more as a general philosophy of life, and rather than to sell a particular product. But I think that it is, that's the problem with the advertising world. We better not get into that.
Right.
That's
I think you stay over on the theological side, and I'll stay clear of advertising.
Well, but however, the theologian should have the right to critique things like that. But anyway, the advertising world gives us that. You only go around once in life, right?
Right.
Seize it, and the gusto. And I think it's a beautiful message and important, and I would like to see it as a sort of general philosophy, because part of the way we're going to become a wholehearted person is if we think of time as an opportunity. It's sort of like a resource that we all have. We all have an equal amount of time. That's something that we share together. It's given to us as a gift. We don't have it coming. It's what's there for us. And therefore, it represents for us an opportunity. It's a resource that we can use well. It's like mining the riches out of that resource. That's an image I would have of a proper way of trying to deal with time. So I'm talking about time here. You can notice that I'm giving it a very personal dimension. Time, I think, is not just something that's connected with the ticking of a clock or watching the hands go around on a wristwatch, or even for us to be watching how much time is left in this program. I think time is what happens as we're talking. Time has got a lot to do with personal interaction. It's the medium in which you and I function and work. And the point of it is that there's different qualities to that time. There's a way in which that I can just leave it, waste it, let it go, miss the opportunities. And there's another way in which I can stay on alert for the opportunities and to try to seize the moment and make the most of the now. So that's part of the way that I would try to think of moving in this direction of becoming a wholehearted kind of person.
I like that notion. I really think it's an excellent way to kind of develop a mental image for yourself in terms of evaluating where you're coming from and what you're trying to accomplish. To be the wholehearted person is a good one. I've heard you give this explanation to groups, and it seems a very concrete type of thing that someone can identify with. I think it works very well, and it certainly describes well the condition that we're trying to get to.
Yeah, I was thinking, you're talking about concrete people. I was thinking of a person that I often put forward as a model in this, a 20th century person, Dag Hammarskjöld, who was Secretary General of the United Nations and lived a very busy kind of life, active life, but unbeknownst to a lot of other people, was keeping a journal and writing a lot about this topic of time. And that's published now as markings, and I think has influenced many people. But he said things about this that have a lot of meaning to me. He said, "It is now, in this very moment, that I can and must pray for all that I have received. The past and its load of debt are balanced against the present, and on the future I have no claim." So for him it is that living moment, that moment that he must seize. He says, the present moment is significant, not as the bridge between past and future, but by reason of its contents which can fill our emptiness and become ours if we are capable of receiving them. I sort of look at Hammarskjöld's life and as being an example of a man who seemed to be able to live wholeheartedly and to be able to immerse himself in the moment. So I think one thing that tells me is that busyness does not have to keep us from a high quality of life. I think one of the reasons he was able to achieve this is because he had that inner reflective life, because he had this spiritual dimension to his life, that he did take time to write in his journal most nights, and he did cultivate the habit of meditation. So I think that really if we're going to overcome this drain on us and these excessive demands upon us, we need some of that quiet time for ourselves. We need to be able to sit back and assess and focus our energies and figure out maybe what it is that we want to concentrate our attention on.
It seems like quality of time is far more important than quantity of time.
Sure. Isn't that true? Like if some people you can talk to for 10 minutes with them and you feel it was terrific, that you got so much out of it, and other people you can spend an hours with and nothing seems to have happened. And I think it's because that maybe we are absent to one another, biologically, physically present, but psychically, mentally, spiritually absent from the other person. And again, I think the spirit of recollection has so much to do with this. It's what I bring to the moment that really is important. I think that daily meditation could improve the quality of our life. I was trying to think of practical ways people might do that. I was thinking of a man who was very busy at work and really immersed in it, and he's going home, might try to meditate a bit in the car on the way home. You might drive
the police
home.
Department would appreciate that.
Yeah, well, maybe. Well, you can think, reflect. You can think and reflect while one is driving. Or if you don't like that, maybe do it before you leave work. Find a few minutes when you can recollect yourself and sort of get in the process of shifting gears so that when you get home that the quality of time can be improved.
A practical story that happened to me in regard to this very problem was the fact that my wife and I have 5 children, and 4 of them were very close together. And when they were very young, and I would come home from work, and my wife was her sole job was to take care of the children, and I would come home, and early on she would tell me the problems as I walked in the door before I ever got my coat off. We would go through chapter and verse of all the shenanigans that the kids went through that day, or the traumas that must be dealt with now that the father was home. And we found that to be totally ineffective. And so we established a little rule, which was she would never tell me any of the problems until after dinner. So that we had an opportunity to sit down and to chat and talk about more positive things rather than problems.
That's a terrific kind of practical solution to the whole kind of problem. I think that represents what needs to be done. We need a lot of techniques to be able to deal with this problem of half-heartedness. I think maybe we need that reflective time. We need to learn to shift gears quickly in dealing with other people. We need the kind of good tactical approach that you were talking about, that you were using with your wife, Anne. So that I think that that is very helpful, and what we need combined with those kinds of techniques, I think, is really a healthy attitude on all of it. I like to think that the moment is important because that's where we meet our God, that we need to seize the opportunities because God gave us the intelligence and the willpower and the energy to make the most of life. God gave us the chance to build something out of our character, to shape our personality, and it seems vital that we do that. As a Christian, I look to the Lord Jesus as the example of that. The Lord said, my hour has come, and I must go to Jerusalem and face my impending death. He said, the kingdom is here, the time is at hand. He spoke to people and said, make the decision now. Now is the moment of decision to decide for or against me. And in that way, he gave us a model and an example, I think, of how to live in the moment. So we have in the Lord Jesus the example of the fullest person who ever lived in a wholehearted fashion, present to people, sensitive to what was going on, and ready to respond to the will of his Father in any given situation.
You've been listening to Reflections with your host, theologian Father James Bacik, campus minister and assistant professor of philosophy at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. Joining Father Bacik in this discussion was Tom Welly, the general manager of a local advertising firm. The topic of this week's Reflections was half-heartedness. If you have any questions about today's program or any ideas for topics you'd like to hear discussed, please write to Reflections in care of WLQR, Toledo, Ohio, 43623. Produced in the studios of WLQR, Reflections is directed by Mark Ferguson. Executive producer is Mary Beth Kirchner. Reflections is brought to you by the Genesis Radio Network.